to the July meeting of the Town of Poughkeepsie Zoning Board of Appeals. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome everyone, and for the record, two of our regular members are not here tonight. Christine is away, and we're still expecting Carmen Bucky, but she isn't here yet. In the meantime, our alternate, Phyllis Capone, will be a full voting member throughout tonight's meeting. Right, for those that are new to the procedures at the Zoning Board of Appeals, the meeting is divided into two halves. During the first half, we will have public hearings on each of the applications that are before us, and we'll take them up in the order that they're found on the agenda. And a copy of the agenda is available in the tray next to our counsel's desk. For each item, we'll ask the applicant to come forward to state their name and to be sworn in. All testimony before the ZBA has to be sworn testimony. And following that swearing in, we'll ask the applicant to give a brief overview of what they're here about. We've obviously gone through the application, but just to refresh our memories. At that point, members of the board will have an opportunity to ask questions about the application. And once everybody on the board has had an opportunity, the floor will be open to anybody from the public that wishes to address that application, but that application only. And those members who wish to speak must also be sworn in. Once we've heard from everyone, we will close the public hearing and move on to the next item. When we've covered all the items, we'll then go back to the top of the agenda for the deliberation phase. And during this part of the meeting, there's no further input from the public. You're certainly welcome to stay and listen to our deliberations. If you cannot stay, you can call the zoning department in the morning and get the results of our deliberations. Okay, there's one other matter that I want to raise with the board, and that has to do with next month's meeting. As it's currently scheduled, we're to meet on Monday, August 13th. But several people have suggested that is not a good night. And so I'm wondering if we could have our meeting the following week. That would be on Monday, August 20th. Is that a problem for anyone?
Nope. I think so.
Looks all right.
Okay. All right. So that seems to work much better. So Sandy will make sure that that we'll make that change on the web page, so people will know. All right. Okay. Let's see. Are there any other kind of procedural things we need to do? Okay. I guess not. All right. In that case, item number 1, Wendy's, located at 753 Main Street. Okay, you probably will find it easier to use the portable mic, so you can just take it out and turn it on, and
Takes a minute. There you go.
okay, there it goes. Okay, so your name, please.
Daniel Schnall, that's S-E-H-N-A-L.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you provide tonight is true and complete to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Very well.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Daniel Schnall with Dynamic Engineering. I'm here tonight on behalf of our applicant, Wendy's Corporation, and we are seeking a code interpretation followed by potentially a amended special use permit. I am the engineer of record that was prepared the plans that were submitted that you have with you this evening. And my first exhibit that I have prepared to present is essentially the survey of the existing property that was submitted along with our application. I'm not sure if I need to mark this as an exhibit or. Okay.
No, that's fine.
Okay. So for orientation purposes, I'll give you a quick overview of the existing site. North is to the top of the page. The site is bordered to the north by West Springside Avenue. To the bottom of the page, running in an east to west direction, is Main Street. The existing site itself is identified as Block 7, Lot 709, located at 753 Main Street. The lot is approximately 1 acre in size. Currently, there is a egress-only and a ingress-only driveway along Main Street, as well as a full-movement driveway along West Springside Avenue. There is a one-way counterclockwise circulation around the site. The existing site consists of one Wendy's building, consisting of about 87 by 38 feet in dimensions, with a square footage of 2,998 square feet. There is an existing drive-through that circulates the site, same orientation as the circulation around in counterclockwise direction. The existing drive-through is about 10 feet in width, the drive-through lane, and from the entrance point of the drive-through near the ingress driveway off of Main Street to the pickup window on the western side of the building is about 360 feet in length. So I guess if you wanted to quantify the size of the drive-through, would be about 3,600 square feet in size if you give it a length and width dimension. So as I stated earlier, we're here this evening looking for a code interpretation because under proposed conditions, shown on my next exhibit, this is a colorized version of the site plan that was submitted along with this application, just colorized to provide a little bit more visual interest. Under proposed conditions, we are planning to add a second order point to the drive-through. Now, a drive-through is a non-permitted use in the ATC district, which the site is located in. The ATC district allows restaurants but does not allow drive-throughs. So there's an existing drive-through with one order point. Under proposed conditions, we will be adding a second order point just to the south of the existing menu board and order point. The reason we are looking for a zoning code interpretation this evening is because Section 210, Chapter 210, Section 134 of your ordinance states that the Zoning Board of Appeals shall hear and decide applications for a permit for an expansion of an existing nonconforming use subject to the following standards. And the first standard listed is that a nonconforming structure may be enlarged or extended one time after the date that the structure became nonconforming, and then to an extent not exceeding 25% of the gross floor area of the existing structure devoted to such nonconforming use. Now, technically, we're really not increasing the size of the actual structure as far as floor area. The existing building is basically staying unchanged. We're actually removing a portion of the front of the building, which is a greenhouse with seating. That portion is taking off. So the building is actually decreasing in size. However, we are adding that extra order point, which results in potentially an expansion of the nonconforming use. So as I said earlier, the existing drive-through, if you were to put a square footage on it, a dimension on it, is about 3,600 square feet in size. The proposed second order point, which is just to the south of the existing, is about 12 feet in width as far as the lane and about 30 feet long. So that results in about 360 square feet of additional area. So if you were going to put a percentage on the existing drive-through size being 3,600 square feet, 25% of that would equate to 900 square feet. So the additional order point consisting of 360 square feet would essentially be less than that 25% allowable if this was to be considered an expansion of a existing non-conforming use. I mean, that is the main reason we're here tonight. As far as other site improvements, will be presented to the planning board, but just some modifications to the building. We're losing one parking space, but it still conforms the maximum allowable. And there will be some signage revisions, some landscaping revisions, basically an all-around update to the existing site.
Okay. All right, thank you. And thank you for getting that additional information about the dimensions. Yeah. Phyllis, any questions?
How are you going to manage pedestrian flow with the double ordering?
Well, pedestrian flow will basically stay uninterrupted as it will function as it does today, because we are not adding a new space that is really going to cut off any pedestrians. The walkways stay the same. Pedestrians that park their vehicle will continue to walk in a southerly direction to the sidewalk to enter in the building. They won't have to cross any lanes of traffic. They won't have to cross over the drive-through, similarly to how it functions today. So there won't be any safety concerns or anything with pedestrians. It will function exactly how it does currently.
So you're adding the extra ordering space, not an extra pickup lane.
That's correct. Extra order point, pickup lane stays exactly the same, no changes to that. Essentially, it just makes the operations operate a lot more efficient. It decreases the amount of stacking. I believe a few lots to the west, there is a McDonald's that has a wide drive-through lane, and it functions the exact same way as this Wendy's would.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Paul?
No, I don't have any questions.
Art?
No questions.
Okay. I'm surprised you're suggesting that it's the order point that's the bottleneck, not the pickup point.
Well, it's it allows two orders to be taken at once. If our construction manager for Wendy's was here, he can explain a little bit more how the internal operations happen.
Yep.
But you'll still have the same amount of time from the point you order to when you pick it up. I think it's typically 3 minutes from your order point to the car, so there won't be any delays. I believe there's an increase in efficiency just from updating the equipment interior of the building when they make those renovations as well.
Okay, okay. Larry?
Is this a general,
Yeah. You said-
it's being done specific to this site because there's some issues, or is this a general thing Wendy's is doing at all of their?
Generally, it's something that Wendy's is looking to do at all of the restaurants. It really brings the store up to times. It makes it a little more user-friendly. As I'm sure you're aware, a majority of fast food takes place through drive-thrus. Not so many people, I guess it's a convenience thing. Maybe people are getting lazier in today's day and age, but not many people go inside the store anymore to order or sit down and dine. Most of the business, believe it's about 60% goes through the drive-thru. And obviously adding this point will improve that efficiency to help the site, function more efficient.
Okay. Okay. Tony?
No questions.
Carmen?
I just wanted to clarify one thing. We were talking about having 2 order points and then one pickup. I still can't quite imagine that there's not going to be a backup there for the pickup. In other words, now that you go in and there's 1 order point and you pick up. But then when there's 2, how is that going to flow?
It functions, it's a matter of the internal operations of the site. While we update the interior of the building, their equipment is updated. So the time that the order is placed to the time where you pick it up, it's going to be the same wherever, not depending on the amount of order points, because the orders are still processed in the same amount of time. They have the capabilities interior of the building to, once that order is placed, to prep the meal and have it ready. plenty of sites have been done very similar in this fashion, and it really does not, alter or make a need for an additional pickup window, because they're still able to process the food prep time in the same amount of points, not depending on the amount of order.
So that would probably mean adding more employees inside.
I think the number of employees stay the same. It actually tends to help reduce employees because you need less people taking orders inside, because you have so many cars going through the drive-through versus people stopping to get inside the building. Because you're really reducing the amount of queue because you have 2 order points versus 1. Because that's where the delay typically is people ordering the food, not from the order point to the pickup window.
No further questions.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, is there anyone from the audience that wishes to address the application from Wendy's at 758 or 753 Main Street? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recusals? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and as you mentioned, when we come to the deliberation, we'll decide on the interpretation first and then consider, if we need to, the variance. Okay. All right. Item number 2 is 2 Water Street, Robert Barton. At the request of the applicant, I move that we adjourn this item until our August meeting, so this would be until August 20th.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so this is adjourned
To August 20th?
August 20th.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anybody here that wanted to talk about it, or? Is there anyone here that wanted to address it, or?
Oh, I guess that's right, yeah. Is there anyone in the audience that is here to address the application at 2 Water Street? Okay. Hearing none, we're adjourned. Okay, thank you for catching that. Item number 3, Jovan Dudley, 4 Crestwood Boulevard. Yeah, you can just have a seat.
Oh, sure, okay.
Yeah. Much,
right up
you
here.
know,
Visual.
just,
No,
yeah, no, just right up here at the desk, and then you can speak into,
no, right up here.
right here.
Yep,
Yeah,
and then you can just use the regular mics, yeah, that are there, yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, we just,
Okay, your
Hi, good
name
afternoon.
is, your name,
Jovan Dudley.
okay.
Sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony provided tonight is true and complete to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay, so briefly, what brings you here tonight?
All right. So, my name is Jovan Dudley. I am a first-time homeowner. Just recently moved to town of Poughkeepsie, right nearby 4 Crestwood Boulevard. Just purchased a house with my wife, and what brings me here today is that the existing driveway is extremely narrow, and so what I learned when I got to the neighborhood is that during the winter season, the cars cannot be parked on the sidewalk, so they can't be parked in front of your house. They have to be in your driveway on your property, so that way the snow plows can do their job and clear the street. So upon understanding that, we have 2 cars, my wife and I. I have a small BMW. I have a work car, which is like a Ford Fusion. It's pretty large, and then she has an SUV as well. We currently park those on the sidewalk now. The existing driveway is not built for modern cars. As you may know, the home is built in maybe 1930. So, because of that, the actual spacing, we cannot fit 2 cars there. And so what I looked at, I went to Briggs Paving, it was a local paving company right on Van Wagner, and we found 2 quotes and 2 possible solutions for this problem. One was to the left, where the existing driveway is at. However, because of the way the driveway is built, it actually descends into the ground, so it leaves a wall to the left, and there's a little bit of space to the left side of the property. However, there's a very large pole in the area which would kind of prevent an entryway for us to go in and possibly put 2 cars there if we were to make a driveway. And the second option, which seems like the better option, which is what we're proposing now for the variance, is on the right side of the house. Next to my neighbor's driveway, we have a fence that separates us. And it would basically go along the side of the house. Just be a straight, flat driveway. It would fit 2 cars for sure. And that way we'd be out of the way, 100% of the year. That's basically it.
All right. We've received 2 letters on this, and I need to read those into the record, and then maybe you want to address some of the issues.
Yeah.
I am out of state and unable to attend. I'm writing this in response to the hearing this Monday regarding the variance request of 4 Crestwood Boulevard to install a 9-foot by 35-foot driveway next to my property located at 2 Crestwood Boulevard. I am against this variance for several reasons. 1, this driveway will be too close to my property line and will invariably encroach my property. I have already had issues with the previous owners. The fence that they installed was put partially on my line and never corrected. 2, I do not want a driveway next to mine. If they decide to take that fence down, there's a possibility of our cars sliding into each other in the event of ice and snow, since both drives would have an incline. Going up and down would prove a challenge. Also, I would lose the little privacy I have due to the way my property is positioned. 3, it will be too large for the front yard and will be a huge eyesore. There's no way they can make that aesthetically work given their property setup. 4, they have a perfectly workable driveway and garage presently that the previous owners used without incident for the 27 years that I've lived next door. I don't want to be that neighbor, but this is not an addition or renovation. Even though I would be impacted directly, it would be a major change to the landscape of our small block in a negative way. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Gabrielle Gaston, 2 Crestwood Boulevard. Okay, in the second letter, I am writing this letter to express my opinion concerning the application for variance approval for Jovan Dudley residing at 4 Crestwood Boulevard. In the letter I received, it states that Mr. Dudley wants to install a 9 by 35-foot driveway in his front yard. I live in the neighborhood and feel that this type of additional driveway would be an eyesore that could potentially harm the aesthetic of the street and neighborhood, as well as potentially reduce overall property values of the surrounding properties. I understand that Jovan and his wife are new residents to the property. I also know that the former residents lived there for at least 20 years and never had a problem utilizing their driveway and garage. They usually had 3 cars at any given time residing at the home and were always able to park them in the said driveway. These houses are all over 80 years old and hold a certain charm that could be ruined by taking away from the naturalness of the front yard and make it look more like a parking lot. In conclusion, I am opposed to the Dudleys adding an additional unnecessary driveway to their property that would change the overall aesthetic of this charming street and neighborhood. Thank you, a concerned neighbor. Okay. All right.
Right. Yeah. So to address the first neighbor, so that's a little misunderstanding because we would not be destroying the fence at all. He would continue to have his privacy. We would continue to have our privacy. That fence would remain intact. Based on the evaluation I did with Briggs Paving, the fence would be there, and we would take up. That's enough space for that 9 by 35 space there. So, no way, shape, or form would we slide into each other unless one of us, obviously rolls through the fence. So. Okay. There's nothing there. And then, as far as I guess it's an eyesore, that's an opinion. I don't believe it would be. We have a green lawn. We have a nice green lawn. It would still be grass there. So, and I also am not sure what kind of cars. I don't believe there were 3 cars there. When I was there, I only saw 1 car. And also, 3 cars. What kind of cars are they? Are they from the 80s? Because it's extremely tight. I can prove that I actually damaged my car just recently. As soon as I moved to the neighborhood, I drove in, and because it's elevated on that driveway, there's a stone, and it projects outside of the driveway even before you get to turn in. So I actually damaged my work car, which I can prove. Probably the third day I moved to the neighborhood. So, and that's the reason why we really want to make sure it gets fixed. So I don't see how it would be possible to fit 3 cars there. And also in addition, I know that the snow plows they dump the snow near the front of the house. So even if we were to kind of fit a car right there, the front hood would pretty much be inches from the street, and that would put a lot of snow. It could possibly damage the car even further. So I don't see how that can work. I mean, I don't have any other alternative because the cars are the size they are. You can't even get out of the car if you try to park in that driveway because it's descending and it's elevation. So unless you want to get out the sunroof, there's no other way to get out. I've tried. My wife has tried. She's torn her meniscus already. So, well, not because of this, but she's on crutches currently. And I mean, any other physical ailments, I mean, that's not going to help. And then, another thing is, I mean, what other resort do I have? So if I don't have a driveway, then I can't park on the sidewalk. I'm just going to park on my grass. So I don't think that's what anybody wants. Environmentally, that's probably not the best thing anyway. So if you really talk about an eyesore, there's one there. So, but that's my only resort. I can't park in the city of Poughkeepsie to walk to my home. I just moved. I'm happy to be here. It's a great neighborhood. It's a great town. I met the neighbors, but I just want to live comfortably like everybody else.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Phyllis, any questions?
Did you explore with Briggs what it would be to get rid of one of the walls where you had more room and then would allow you to level it out?
Absolutely, yes. So that is the first option. So that's actually the first option I decided to do. I wanted to expand the existing driveway. I didn't even want to go to the side. So how that conversation went was that because of the descent on the left side, there's about 2 to 3 foot wall. So that would have to be broken down completely. There's no telling if it's hollow. They don't know if it's all concrete. So that would take a lot of work, a lot of manpower to break that down. Plus, that we would have to create a new wall between the neighbor's property, the other neighbor's property, because once they break down that concrete on the left side, there's grass there and there's a hill. So we would have to call a landscaping company now to install a new wall around the side of that driveway. And then there's still, I mean, we've done the measurements, and even if you do that, we're probably stretching it another 5 or 6 feet, I believe, to the left. And it's still a tight space for 2 cars in that driveway. They'd have to kind of park parallel, but a little bit ahead of each other to kind of make space to get out of the car and things like that. And it would be a lot more expensive. I mean, it would probably cost another $6,000. This job to put on the side of the house, the one that I'm applying for, is about $3,000, maybe $3,500. So a lot more economical for me and my family. And I think it makes more sense because there would be no problem fitting cars there. I mean, it would be really simple. Just pull into the driveway, just like everyone does on the block. And so I don't see why not.
Are you currently using that driveway and garage?
Yes. So I have a small BMW which can back into that driveway. It is a challenge. I challenge anybody to do that on a daily basis. Like I said, I've already damaged my bigger car, the Ford Fusion I use for work, just pulling in. So it is extremely challenging every day. And even if you were to get through the driveway, you still have to worry about your rearview mirrors, and so it's very challenging nonetheless. So even if I do fit that one car in there, that leaves 2 other cars. My wife has a Chevrolet Equinox, huge car, as you know, and I have a Ford Fusion, long body car. It is impossible to fit 2 cars in that space remaining, literally.
And lastly.
Yeah.
Promise.
No problem.
If you're not able to do this tonight, what will you do?
Well, thankfully, I still have a couple months in the summer, so I'm going to continue to park on the sidewalk. Until then, I don't know what I would do. Like I said, I would have to park on the grass.
And I'm sorry.
No problem.
You've been in the house since when?
March 28th this year.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Paul?
Just so I'm clear, what was the estimate for just the driveway and for removing the retaining wall and widening the driveway?
I mean, estimate, approximately, that was,
I'm sorry, I understood that you got an estimate.
yes, you're right. And I got two estimates. So.
And what are they?
For the retaining wall, I can pull it up on my phone if you want the exact number, but.
Yeah, that's what I'd like.
Sure, okay, give me 1 second. Got it. So for the retaining wall, right, that's the existing driveway. To expand that, removal of replacement 500 square foot driveway, remove 17 by 5 concrete sidewalk and retaining wall. The rate is $6,500, and that is without applying a new wall, because as they mentioned to me, the paving company Briggs, they're not responsible for the remaining wall, so they can break it down and make a pavement, but they can't put a wall. So they're gonna leave it with a hill and it's dirt, grass, everything. So now I have to contact a landscaping company, and add a wall, which they didn't give me the price for. They didn't go that far with me on that one.
Okay, and then how much was the proposed, the 325-foot driveway?
Yep, just give me a moment, please. Okay, sorry, just make sure it's the right one. That is, okay, $3,600.
Okay, and I notice across the street from you, the house is pretty similar to yours, right?
Yeah,
And there's an occupant that gets a Suburban backed in there pretty well, right?
you mean the sheriff?
Yes.
Yeah, the sheriff, right. She has, yep, that car, that's gonna fit one car. So that driveway, she can only fit that one car there.
There seem to be, how many vehicles does she have?
3. And I haven't seen how she parks in the winter, so I don't know what she's gonna do. I assume there are other residents, maybe they live somewhere else. I'm not sure what they are to her and anything like that, but that's one car that's gonna fit. I have 3.
So you've only seen one car in that driveway?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And did Briggs say anything about the tree in your front yard?
Yes, they said it would not be a problem. They have enough space for the roots, which are gonna stretch out, I think, 2 to 3 feet outside the tree. So they said that would not be a problem.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Art?
You said you were using the garage, so if you got one car in the garage, that only leaves you 2 cars to worry about in the driveway.
Exactly, and like I just mentioned to Paul, there's only one car that can fit in the driveway. So
No,
that's,
you said you could get 2 if you stagger them.
I'm sorry?
You said you could get 2 if you staggered them.
No, that's if I extend the retaining wall. And that's possible. So, all right, let me reiterate. So if I do the retaining wall operation where it's what, $6,500, there's a possibility that we can fit both cars side by side. Yet it would still be very tight. Like I said, it's very hard to open a door with 2 walls next to you. It's not like it's elevated and it's on an even playing field, ground level. So that's what it would look like. But currently, no, I cannot park 2 cars on that driveway. As you can probably see.
Before you said you could stagger the cars, get them in there. You said it.
No, I didn't. No, so you may have misunderstood. If I cannot fit 2 cars in there. I would never say that because I can't. So only one car can fit in the driveway, on the driveway path. There's a car in my garage already, if that's what you're referring to. I don't know where. I'm just trying to help you understand. I don't know. What do you mean?
And why can't you go to the right, looking at the house? Why can't you extend the driveway slightly to the right instead of the left?
Oh, okay. So you mean the existing driveway, extending it to the right? That would be on my front lawn, and it's already elevated about, like I said, 3 feet. So yeah, that would be a huge drop off. So yeah, if you look at it, you can see the driveway going down. To the right, there's already a big wall, and then that's where my lawn starts. So that would be,
But you're gonna lose all your lawn on the other side of the house, so
well, that's not, and that's the thing. So aesthetically, and as far as the eyesore comment, this is actually to the right of my house. It's not even in front of my house. What you're suggesting, you're saying to the right of my driveway, that'll be in front of my house. So that would literally be a pavement, right? Concrete pavement in front of my house leading up to my window, my dining room window. So that's an eyesore, in my opinion. The one I'm proposing is to the right of the house.
Exactly.
There's nothing in front of the drive. There would be nothing in front of it. The house would not be there.
that you lose all that lawn that you're so proud of that you're dying
No,
about.
I'm not. So that lawn, it almost looks irrelevant because I have the house here, and then that's not even the front lawn. That's the side. So that path leads to the side of my house, which is my backyard. So that entrance, you can walk on that. You don't have to, look at that.
I think we're going in circles here.
Okay, I'm just trying to help you
And
understand.
what do you define, what are you saying you're parking on the sidewalk? Because that's, number one, illegal in the town. You're actually parking on the sidewalk?
There's no sidewalk.
There's no sidewalk.
Okay, well, he keeps saying sidewalk.
I know, but there's no sidewalk.
Okay, so you're parking on the side of the.
I'm parking like everybody on my block. I'm parking right
Side
on
of
the
the
street.
road.
Edge of the road, yeah.
Yes,
Right, okay.
in front of yes, just like everybody on my block.
No more questions right now.
Okay, the driveway that you proposed, starts at the front property line. How far back does it go in relation to the house?
Yeah, it would be stopped before a divider, which would be 6 feet. I guess 6 feet before you get to that divider. So it would go back far enough where that's still my property and the side of my house, with the entrance to my backyard. It would literally it's 35 by 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you considered creating a parking area in your backyard?
Wow. All right. So yeah, I mean, I have thought about it. Yeah, I have thought about it, and how that would work would be really, really hard too. Because, all right, so if you do that, one, I would have to go from the right side where I'm proposing the driveway currently, and leading into the backyard. So that would be more. I'll be creating more concrete because I would have to go, to the right of my house, and then that's a tighter space because, my neighbor, not the 2 Crestwood Boulevard, but the other one, I forget his address. We share that little part there, and I have steps that come down from the side of my house, so you wouldn't really be able to turn into that right side of the house. Now the left side, again, option, I would have to go on the grass, which I pretty much share with my other neighbor, and there's a huge pole there already.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. All right. The reason I'm asking is that, as I understand it, and our attorney can correct me, the reason that you need a variance is that you're allowed to have a driveway in the front yard as long as it leads to a garage, carport, or parking area. So I'm wondering if you could create one of those, then you could have a driveway.
I would be willing to do that. So I think what you're referring to, hopefully, is like a divider, because I know that my neighbor across the street, they have like a privacy divider, just like wood panel, and they have a flat driveway on the side of the house, and it leads right up to like a flat privacy divider, and you can open the door and go in the backyard. That would be, I think that's fine for me, if that's okay, because the rebuttal was that it leads to nowhere. That's the verbiage they gave me, which it actually leads to the separation of my neighbors to the other side of the house, a fence. So I don't see why that's a problem currently, but if you want me to put another divider there, it would be a little redundant, but that helps.
It's not a question of putting a divider there. What you would need to do is have a parking area that's beyond the front of your house, set back on the side. So you'd need to have a parking area there, and if you were able to do that, then you wouldn't need the variance from this board.
I don't understand. So can you just repeat it one more time for me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the right side of your house. That area is lawn, I'm presuming, on the right side of your house. If you were to make that a gravel area or a driveway of some kind, because it's behind the front line of your house, you then wouldn't need a variance from this board. And you could have the area up until that point also as driveway without issue.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like something I was, trying to do. You know, it's just going up from the front line.
Yeah, okay, and I think I'm going to allow the other members to ask questions,
Sure.
but what we might want to do here is adjourn this, and then in the next couple of weeks, explore with people from zoning, people with Briggs, about exactly that, creating, I think the language is a duly surfaced parking area, so it should be paved or gravelled or something like that. Where you could fit a couple cars,
Yes.
and then having a driveway leading from that to the street is something that you can do by right.
Yeah,
You
and
don't need a variance.
Thank you. Okay.
So I think what I recommend, is that okay? Is that we just adjourn this, let you do a little more research, get, measure it out, get some estimates on the cost, and then maybe you don't even have to come back.
And that would be great. And I think that's what I was trying to get to, but I was stopped when they told me that I would need a variance. I went to highway and I spoke to them about that. Because it is a
Did the
driveway.
highway
that
say
is-
that you needed a curb cut, permission from them to make another entrance off the road?
I didn't hear that.
I suspect that's part
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like you said, leading from the street into the like a driveway for me, which is like what everybody has on my block.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim, could I ask that we have it staked?
Pardon?
Can you rough stake it out so we have a visual idea when we look at it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so what he's suggesting is, I think that's fair.
Sure.
Is that when you look at creating this parking area along the side and of your house,
Right.
Just put some stakes in the ground about,
Okay.
and, I think.
To map it out so that way we can see where the cars are.
Yeah, just take some stakes and put them in the corners so that we can kind of see where it's going to be and where it's going to be in relationship to the property line and.
To include the parking area, right?
Yes.
Yeah, everything, yeah.
Okay. So
He's going straight
I'll go
back,
purchase
theoretically.
some steaks.
Yeah,
And put them.
I don't know.
It doesn't have to be real fancy.
I know. Yeah. This is new to me.
Yeah, yeah. But you might want to measure what you've got there, and then maybe come in and, I don't know, Sandy, you could look at it and.
It really should be a
or-
discussion with a building inspector who can say what's allowed and what the requirements are. And then once there's a plan, then we can decide if it's something,
that he needs a variance for.
right.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, do a little research and then come in and talk to somebody from the building department.
Okay.
And,
So I have a few estimates already, and so my next plan of action, you said, is to get a few stakes to map it out, so that way I guess you guys can come by and do an inspection.
No, the next thing you should do is come in with a plan to the building department and speak with one of the someone there, and they can talk to you about your plan and what's allowed and what you might need, and go from there. Because there might be other permits, such as a highway permit, that you need if you're making a second
I
cut.
purchased a highway permit. So I have a highway permit, and I have that in escrow.
Didn't you just say you didn't know if you needed a curb cut?
I'm sorry?
You just said you didn't know if you needed a curb cut.
I didn't even use the word curb cut. I'm just talking about the permit.
You are talking in circles here.
I'm not talking in circles. I'm answering her question. She
You
asked me.
just said that you had a permit from the highway department.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Never mind. I'm done. I'm good.
I'm sorry, I offended you. I don't know what you are asking me. And I was just responding to the question you asked me about the permit. I went to the highway, and they told me what I needed to do was apply for a permit and pay an escrow fee, an application fee, which I did pay. And then after that, it resulted into a variance. So they told me I need to go to you guys to do a variance, and that's where I'm at today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think just so we're both clear, everyone's clear.
Yeah.
If you're going to consider a parking area in the back,
Yeah.
you need to speak and get an estimate about that, see if that's within your budget, if that's something you want to do.
Yes.
Or if that's not what you want to do, if you want to continue here with the variance request.
Okay, so are you saying that I can proceed with?
Now,
I
we're going
just
to
don't know.
suggest that it's adjourned.
Okay.
Because I don't think they have enough information to be successful tonight.
Okay, so I
There's a
have.
way for you to proceed without getting a variance if you want to put a parking area in the rear.
Or the side.
Oh, the side, yeah, because the rear I would have to go through the side to get to the rear of the house.
Okay. And if that's what you want to do, you're going to speak with the building department just to make sure that it complies with all the laws and regulations about whether you do or don't need a variance for what you want to do.
Okay, so
Okay.
so I'll speak to building department and tell them that we had this meeting and just ask them if I do need a variance for what we're doing.
Yeah, the other thing you can do is when you come in, the building department and the zoning department are all right together.
Yes.
You might want to just speak with Sandy.
Okay.
She's in the zoning department, and she can kind of walk you through who you should be talking to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Larry, do you have anything?
No question.
Okay, Tony?
I think we covered it.
I'm ready.
Carmen? Okay. All right.
Well,
So,
just a minute, Jim. I think it's good that we're really trying to work with this applicant to help him out there.
Thank you.
I do question, I know the letters from two neighbors. Frankly, I don't think of a driveway as aesthetically unpleasing necessarily. And there's other things you can do to the property that would not be appropriate.
yeah, and when we were there, I mean, one of the first things we noticed was, the existing driveway,
Yeah.
slopes down.
Right.
And it's pretty narrow. I
Thank
mean,
you.
it's between two walls.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
So
so, I
We'll see
move
what
that we.
Want to see if there's anyone in the audience?
Yeah, okay, yeah. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the application at 4 Crestwood Boulevard? All right, seeing none. I move we adjourn item number 3 to our August 20th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, and it may happen that you don't need a variance, in which case we won't see you.
Okay, got it.
All right, good luck.
Understood. Thank you, guys. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Appreciate it.
Because I'm really trying to listen.
Okay, item number 4, Robert McCready, 36 Harmony Circle, and let the record show that Paul Lay is recusing himself on this item. Good evening.
Good evening.
And your name for the record?
Robert McCready.
Okay.
Mr. McCready, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give here today will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Thank you. Okay. So, what brings you here?
Replaced my shed and didn't realize I needed a building permit to do it.
Okay.
The setbacks have changed since I had one there. There has been a shed in that location since 1967. I'm the second owner of the house. I bought it from my parents in 1988.
Okay.
At this time, the shed, that's the location of the shed. The reason why it is there is obviously because of the property size itself, very small, and also the location of the leach fields in the rear of the residence where that shed is located. It needs to be there so that it's far enough away, it doesn't obstruct the leach fields which fan in the backyard of the residence.
Okay. Phyllis?
We went out to the house on Sunday, and it's got, the shed that you're referring to has the yellowed garage door on it?
Yes,
And that's the one you're replacing?
yes,
Same dimensions?
same,
Same height?
exact, yes.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Okay, Art?
No, it's really no other place to put it.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, and it's,
Kind of
Long
trash.
story, my dad wanted to buy 2 lots, and my mom, who grew up in Arlington, said no.
Guess we know who won, huh?
right.
She didn't want to, and I got to be honest with you, at 61 years old, I don't mind the small yard now because it's pretty easy to take care of.
Got it. Larry?
No questions.
Tony?
I have no questions.
Carmen?
No question.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address 36 Harmony Circle? If not, is there a motion to close the public
So
hearing?
moved.
Don't move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And there's one recusal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 5, New Hamburg Development Corporation at 12 Reed Street. Is anyone here from representing 12 Reed Street? Okay. All right, let's put that aside and come back to it at the end. Okay, item number 6, Briad Lodging Group, Poughkeepsie LLC, 900 Thomas Watson Drive.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Richard Cantor. On behalf of the applicant, the gentleman at the stand is Ken Casamento with the LRC Group. They are the project engineers. The subject.
Let's see, I guess all of you need to be, I guess both of you need to be sworn in. Okay.
Do each of you swear or affirm the testimony provided tonight is true and complete to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
The
Sorry to
subject
interrupt.
that brings us here is a proposed pylon sign for the development known as Homewood Suites. As an aside, Homewood Suites is fully framed at this point. It's a 4-story building that's fully framed and well on its way towards completion and opening. We are here on appeal from an April 12 determination by the zoning administrator. The zoning administrator made 2 determinations concerning this proposed pylon sign. She determined that the sign is not permitted because the sign is not located on the same premises or parcel as is the hotel. She also decided that the sign is not allowed because it's not at a driveway entrance to the site, to the hotel site. Those were her 2 findings. We're here on both an appeal and in the alternative, a request for a variance. On the appeal, we are asserting respectfully to Ms. Ortiz that she's incorrect. If you agree with us, then that will resolve the need to consider a variance. If you don't agree with us, then in the alternative, we would ask for a variance. In terms of dates and procedures, if when we're done this evening, you think, and I'm asking for a courtesy from the board and letting us know, if you think you have enough information to grant the relief we're requesting, then we would ask that you proceed to decide. In the alternative, if you don't think you have enough information to grant the relief we're asking, we would ask for the courtesy of adjourning this matter to your August meeting for us to provide further information. And if it turns out you're adjourning it, you can continue or not continue the public hearing as you choose. We have no objection if you choose to continue the public hearing. I have two hand-ins that I want to provide to you. One is an affidavit by Neil Wilson, who is the drafter of the business park sign legislation. And the other, if you give me a moment, and I fumble through a lot of papers, is an email dated today from David Kaminsky reciting that he previously, in connection with this project, requested permission from Marriott to put the Homewood sign on the same pole or pylon as the Marriott sign, and that the request for permission was categorically denied. Marriott said this is a competitor and we have no intention of allowing a second sign from a competitor on our pylon sign. That's relevant for a number of reasons, including the fact that the county planning department raised that issue of two signs on the same pylon. Let me just make an aside for a moment, and then we'll go back to our main presentation. Again, we're here concerning a pylon sign. If it turned out that the zoning administrator and Mr. Welty thought that a shorter monument sign would adequately address their concerns during the period of adjournment, we would be happy to pursue with Mr. Welty and with the zoning administrator the issue of a shorter monument sign as opposed to this requested pylon sign. So I just put that out in case we get that far.
Okay, let me just make sure that I'm clear on this, so that if you proceeded with the monument sign, then we would have the current pylon sign with the Marriott, and then next to it, a monument sign with the
Homewood Suites, that's a shorter sign.
Nope, all within one base. One of the requested, and we'll get to that later in the discussion, but one of the requested items that was in the original approval was having a cohesive stone base around both of them that doesn't exist today.
Right.
So what we were talking about is keeping that base, but bringing the pylon sign basically down to the base for our sign, proposed sign.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of the appeal, my first point is that my client, unfortunately, without consultation, made an application for a sign permit. It doesn't require a sign permit. The provisions of 210-117 subdivision A require permits for signs, and then it says except as otherwise permitted. The otherwise permitted exception is found in 210 section 118 subdivision capital A, which is an exception for signs for which site plan approval is required. That's an exception from the otherwise applicable provision for the requirement of a permit. If you look at section 210-123 subdivision A, it says that all freestanding signs require site plan approval. If you look at 210-60 subdivision B4, you'll see that a freestanding sign requires, that site plan approval requires approval of a freestanding sign. We have site plan approval, as Ken can show you, on the approved signed site plan. The sign we're talking about this evening in its exact location and in its exact appearance is on that signed, approved site plan. And so we are asserting as a beginning point that we don't need a permit, and we're asking you for that interpretation. If you don't agree with that interpretation, then we're asking you, as a matter of interpretation and appeal, to agree with us that a freestanding sign in the business parks, in a business park, is permitted on a lot that's different from the lot on which the hotel is located, and that there's no requirement that that lot on which the sign is proposed needs to be a part of the business park. Okay, we think it's clear, and I think that the Wilson affidavit solidifies that a freestanding sign, the pylon sign, is permitted on a separate lot from the lot on which the hotel is located, and that lot need not be in the business park. The second reason cited by the zoning administrator is that the sign is not at a driveway entrance. We believe that's factually incorrect. It's on the site plan. The location is at Route 9, and is it Thomas Watson Drive?
Yes.
Thomas Watson Drive is a private road there by means of a reciprocal easement. It's actually owned by IBM. There's nothing in the code that requires the driveway entrance to be at a public street. It merely need be a driveway entrance. And this is a driveway entrance. In Mike Welty's memorandum to you, and I thank Mike for the courtesy of providing a copy to us, he refers to a statement by the zoning administrator to the effect that, and let me just find the exact language.
Well, Richard was getting that. I just wanted to point to what Richard had said about the business park. And the original business park, this is the approved plan, and the sign was on that plan outside of the business park area.
Okay, I have it underlined somewhere. I apologize for. Mike wrote that the staff concurs with the zoning administrator's determination that the provisions of the code can only apply to properties which within the town board designated business park. When you look at the determination by the zoning administrator, there is no such determination. Rather, she's made the two determinations that I identified previously, that this is not a site driveway, and that they need to be on the same property. But she did not say anything, and that's not before you, as to whether the sign location need be in a business park. So we would ask that for any of the reasons that I've recited, that upon deliberation, be that this evening or at a subsequent meeting, that you agree that we don't need a permit, or that we're entitled to the permit because we comply with the sign provisions for development in the business park, and the hotel is a property in the business park. If we get to the alternative for a variance, the beginning point is that this exact variance that we would ask you for was previously granted by your predecessors on this board at a point in time prior to the now current business park sign legislation. And it's basic law that a prior determination by a zoning board requires consistency unless there are relevant and valid reasons to say that circumstances have changed. In the memorandum by Mike says that there are two changes. One, that the zoning board is doing a better job about signs. Congratulations if you are, but that's not a change in the variance factors. And the other is that there's now business park legislation that didn't exist at the time of the prior variance. So if we get to the variance, we're asserting that there are no relevant, valid changes in the area that would support a conclusion different than the conclusion by your predecessors that a variance is okay and proper for this proposed sign. I'm going to turn this over to Ken in a moment and I know that you're all familiar with what's on Route 9, but nonetheless, we need, in order to create an adequate record, to have Ken walk you through with appropriate photographs the character of the neighborhood which we are in and which we assert we are not harming nor making any difference. There is a legal question which perhaps Lisa can think about as to whether the variance application, if you get to it, is subject to seeker. The site plan, which contains the exact sign at the exact location, was granted a negative declaration. And I assert, that the variance for this sign, if you get to the variance, is a type 2 action. The citation is section 617.5 C7, which is construction of accessory non-residential structures involving less than 4,000 square feet of gross floor area. At the moment, we have not submitted an EAF. If we get to the variance, and depending on your decision with the advice of your counsel, if you assert that it's not type 2 and it's adjourned, we will provide an EAF. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Ken.
Okay.
Hey, it's on. Good evening. So as I said before, this was the original approved site plan when this was the Hilton Garden Inn, which received the first variance in 2008. And then...
just to be clear, the Hilton Garden Inn is now the Homewood Suites.
Correct. Sorry. Thank you. The approved site plan. So what we wanted to do is, again, as Richard pointed out, walk through what signage is there and the kind of community character along the corridor Route 9 down to basically Neptune Road from Coyote Grill up at the top. So we have kind of where the photos are, and we'll leave the boards with you guys for the evening for record. As you can come down Route 9, you can see both the Coyote Grill and the Poughkeepsie Inn signs here. Those were both present when this the original variance was given for the Hilton Garden Inn. You move just a little further south, you start to have the Mobile stacked by the Hudson Plaza Inn, which was again originally there at the same time at the variance. Just a little further south, just north of our site, as you come to the crest of the hill, as you come down to the site, you have the Hudson Harbor sign, the Duchess Mattress sign, the Germano sign, and the Speedway sign. My understanding is that all of these, except for one, was there, but there was a recent variance for one of the signs at the Germano property in the past few years since that time of our signage. And I have some talking points that I'll give you as well for the record. As we start to come down the hill, you'll start to see this is our site here with Spackenkill Plaza sign, the Marriott Residence Inn over here. That's what exists today. This is what we're proposing. As you can see between the two, there really isn't a lot of character difference between the two. Again, remember this is a photo simulation, so the colors are brighter in the stuff that's there, and the photos are slightly dimmer, but overall character consistent with what we see just north of our site with the signs stacked on top of each other. This sign was, again, approved in 2008 as the Hilton Garden Inn with a photo simulation very similar to this. In 2009, when it went to the business park, this was not considered needing a variance because it was in the business park as part of that thing on the approved site plan as I showed for the business park. When my firm took this through the planning board in June of 2017, we were before the board here for a variance for the height of the sign on the building itself above that, but there was no variance determined for the sign that's here, even though it was existed on the site plan. As you move a little further south, you have Red Roof Inn and the Golden Corral. As we know, Golden Corral is newer than the variance that was there. You come down to Neptune Road, which is the other business park just south of us. You have the main sign on Route 9, which has bounced, crunch, rock climbing, and then you have a second sign for the Dunkin' Donuts, which is a parcel. Now, these are on separate parcels. There are 4 parcels as part of the bounce, and each one of them are on separate different parcels that identify signs on each different entrance. So you have this entrance from Route 9, you have the first entrance on Neptune, and then a second entrance on Neptune, all of which have signs for different patrons and businesses within there. You have Carl's Jr., which is in the front lot on the first 2, which is not in the third lot, but they do recognize each other in different areas. We then turned around and went north on Route 9. As you come up Route 9, you get to the first one, which is Halftime, which our understanding is it's about 2000 to 2004 is when it was constructed, so we believe it was here as well at the time of the original variance. You move up just a little further northbound, you have Royal Pools, and then you have the Indian Restaurant or deli, grocery. Both signs have been there for some time. As you get to the intersection just with, which is here, with Spackenkill Road, you have the transmission and another business there, which is Chinese Restaurant, Nails, and Screen Printing. They, again, were there, from what I understand, at the time the variance was granted. This site for 13 is Solar Shades, The Hill, and Tobacco Restaurant. This is immediately across the street from our site. As you can see here, it's literally just across the street. These are 2 separate businesses. This business has 2 pylon signs for its 1 tenant that are in there to provide signage. This is looking now at our site with the existing Marriott sign, the Spackenkill Plaza sign, and in this case, the proposed Homewood with Marriott and the sign there. And again, as you see, it's really not any character difference than what was there and what was originally approved back in 2008 when the variance was granted the first time. As you come further north, you have Post Road Plaza, which was located on, has multiple different entrances and was not part of the business park, but was granted variances for a sign in both this location and this location here, which are on separate parcels than the ones that are there present now. IHOP and U-Haul, both at one entrance here, again, keeping with the character of what was there. And then lastly, just to go back, this was the approved sign that was within our site plan package and the signed site plan. And as you can see, I'm just pulling up this is really what we're proposing. It's the exact same sign that was there on the signed site plan set. Thank you.
If I may just briefly.
Okay.
Continue. As the members know, the basic test for variance is a balancing test. Balancing the benefit to the applicant against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The benefit to the applicant is a visible sign along Route 9 for a site that is otherwise not visible from Route 9. We assert, particularly in the context of the neighborhood character that Ken has just sent you, that there is no detriment to the neighborhood or community. What we are proposing is entirely consistent with the neighborhood or community. And so perhaps we stop at this point and see if there are questions from the board members that we can address.
Okay, before we do that, okay, I have some other, there's clearly some new information here. Certainly the affidavit from Neil Wilson is something that the board will need to consider. I do have one quick question about the variance that was granted in, what was 2008? Yeah. The sign, of course, was never completed. So doesn't that variance expire? We had some questions.
Yes, and I don't know if it was part of Mike's report, but yes, there is a provision in the code that variances do expire.
Right, and Mr. Charlie, we're not saying otherwise. We acknowledge it expired.
Right. I just wanted to make sure this actually came up in another. Okay, let's start with the interpretation first. And I went back and looked at the zoning administrator's determination, and her determination was that the plot of land on which this sign is proposed is owned by IBM, and that there was, after some inquiry, it turns out that it's zoned Business Highway, BH. And that her interpretation was that to erect a sign on the BH parcel for a business that is not located on that parcel is prohibited by the code.
Yes, that's what she said.
That's her determination.
That's one of her two determinations.
Okay. And you know, I believe that we are in some new circumstances, and they have to do with the business park. Okay. And I tried to sort this out, and so let me kind of propose an argument here, and essentially it's an argument in which I would affirm the interpretation of the zoning administrator, because to me the argument to put this sign on the IBM parcel for a business that is not located on that property hinges on the language that's in the business park, which, and I can just quote the relevant sections. Tenants of the business park may place commercial copy advertising a business within the business park on a freestanding sign, whether or not such freestanding sign is located on a separate lot from such business. Okay, that's the language. What bothers me about that is that I think that language is simply inherently ambiguous. And for example, and it hinges on the location of two prepositional phrases. Within the business park on a freestanding sign, as opposed to on a freestanding sign within the business park. And how you put the emphasis on those two completely changes it. And to me, first of all, the existing I think the existing language should mean on a freestanding sign within the business park, because otherwise it's redundant. To talk about tenants of the business park clearly identifies the qualified applicants. So to say a business within the business park is redundant and inherently ambiguous. My other argument is that in any interpretation that allows a business within the business park to erect signs outside the business park would allow essentially them to place a sign in any zoning district, PH, residential, whatever. And that, in effect, would be to change the zoning requirements of these other zones. And there's no evidence that when the town board adopted this, they considered the impact that it would have on other zoning districts, which would have been required if it meant that business park owners could go outside of the business park. So, I mean, and what this does is strongly suggests to me, at least, that the town board intended the flexibility in the location of freestanding signs to apply only to the newly designated business park. In other words, the hotel can place its sign anywhere within the business park, whether or not it's on the same lot, but it has to be within the business park. So I think then we're the determination that it's the rules of the zoning district that control is not so surprising. I mean, lex locus is a very old legal principle, common law. So, maybe, just for the sake of discussion of the interpretation part, I would offer that as an argument, and members of the board can agree or disagree. So, Phyllis, if you on the interpretation, questions, comments?
No, I think that your point of how it would have created more change than they originally thought was probably the most important point for me, because I think that people have worked very hard to place requirements on signage, and it is all about balancing business and quality of life. And so you have to have rules for where, to supersede some of this.
All right. Paul?
Yeah, I think that's a fair reading of the statute.
I agree with your.
Larry?
That's good.
Tony?
I'm in agreement.
Carmen?
I agree.
Okay. So I'm.
Would it be appropriate at this point in time to disagree with you?
You always do. Why not?
Okay, so first of all, I believe you said something to the effect that there's an inherent ambiguity in this language. And one of the rubrics of zoning administration is that ambiguities get decided in favor of the property owner. So that's one piece of the disagreement.
Okay.
Secondly, when I look at the sign language in the business park, it says tenants of the business park, and the Homewood Suites is a tenant in the business park. Tenants of the business park may place commercial copy advertising a business, which is this sign, within the business park on a freestanding sign, and says the business within the business park. So I agree with you that this is not a model of clear drafting, and that there is an ambiguity depending when you look this way or that way. But I think that point that you raise, which is an insightful point, is to be decided in the face of the ambiguity in favor of the applicant. Because it could be read, as you point out, either way.
Okay, okay. Fair enough. I think if we turn to the next thing, if we, for the sake of discussion tonight, and I think and just to get ahead of myself a little bit, given the new material, I think adjourning this makes some sense. So let's talk about the idea of a variance for some sign. And on this one, I am more inclined to agree with you than disagree.
I knew you were brilliant.
I believe there was. I think a sign is needed, and a number of people have pointed out that both the Marriott and the Homewood Suites are difficult to see from the highway. That people need to know where to turn to get to either of these in a safe and efficient manner. So I think the question now is a matter of, where a sign would go and what it might look like. And for my part, I kind of thought, well, if the sign were to remain within the business park, which I think the business park code clearly allows, I think there's no ambiguity there. Two possible locations come up. One would be to put the pylon sign with the design that you showed us on the northeast corner of the business park lot. So it would be, but within the boundaries of the business park. Okay. That would be one possibility. You would still have the two different pylon signs there, and that might be doable. The other possibility would be to put it on the south east corner of the business park, near that driveway. And by the way, I think for my purpose, I think both of these are driveways. So I don't think we need to. At least for me, I don't want to debate that too much. The problem with the southeast corner is that, yes, you can exit Route 9 there and you could get to the Homewood Suites, but it's a circuitous route. It's not the most efficient way. Now, the other option would be to put the two signs on the existing pylon, which sounds like in 2008 was a non-starter.
Right, it's not available to us.
Whether that is still the case or not, we don't know. But you've introduced a third or another option here, and that's leave the existing Marriott pylon sign as it is and put in a monument sign. That's a new idea, and I think that might be one we want to think about. Okay, let me let the rest of the board chew on this a bit. Phyllis, any comments or questions? Paul?
Yeah, I would like just an opportunity. I looked at my notes from the July 10th, 2017 application for the variance for the building sign. I would like an opportunity to review the minutes from that. I have some notes that indicate that there might have been some interplay between that variance and a monument sign, but I can't recall exactly.
Okay, all right.
Done?
Yeah.
Art?
like you said, the monument sign is an attractive alternative. I'd like to see it. The suggestion was that we might adjourn, and if we did that, I'd like to see a rendition of the monument sign, see what it looks like. It would probably look nicer than this, my opinion, that you'd have a nice, I would also like to see if they put it on the northeast corner, like you said, which would be vicinity of Red Robin, that end of the mall where, right?
Yeah,
I'd like to see a rendition of either sign there. There probably would be the pedestal sign. The pedestal sign would probably be best because of the trees probably in the way coming north, if that would be a possibility, in case we adjourn it.
Arthur, if I may, for 1 minute? To that, if I can just speak to that point. There's an existing, if you see it here, large stone low sign.
Yes.
So it would require either going up with a pylon behind it.
Right, and that's, okay.
And if you look at the way this sits, that sign sits here in between the walks, and then you're gonna be really close to the parking lot.
Okay.
With the sign behind it.
I didn't measure, but okay.
No, understood, and that's why I'm
fine.
just trying to think through it.
Just a thought.
As a group, think through it. I think lower here would be a problem for that reason, because of that sign that's here, that structure that's there.
Okay.
We'd have to go above it. And effectively, it would be in this spot,
To be right behind that one.
right behind it. So
So the monument sign would be the,
it would be
Best
similar
of-
look
best
to what
of-
you're looking at now. And I'd almost be, depending on where this sits, with where we can fit it, either in this corner here or in this corner here, with removal of some of the existing trees, because there's, if you don't have it here, but it's smaller, these trees here are in these corners. So we'd have to look at a removal of a tree there, in which case you'd put it over here and it'd be almost behind the sign that's there.
okay, just a thought, okay.
No, agreed. I just, again, wanted to talk about it while we're all here, so we
So
can.
the monument sign would be ahead on the Route 9 side of the Residence Inn sign, if you did a monument sign,
Essentially, this would just drop down to the stone,
right?
to sit at the stone lower. So you would kind of block some of the low monument sign. That's really, it's more of a plaza sign
Right.
than a monument sign.
Okay,
But that's where it would be.
thank you.
Larry?
No questions.
Okay, Tony?
I'd like to see, the alternative. I'm thinking it sounds like we're gonna be adjourning until the 20th.
I have no questions right now.
Okay. I don't know, Mike, do you have anything you want to toss in here that we should?
No, I mean, I think I'd like the opportunity to review some of the things that were submitted tonight, and I think about some of the options that have been presented as well.
Mr. Charlie, before you adjourn, request that you authorize Lisa after tonight to give me her thoughts about whether this is a type 2 or not, so that if she doesn't agree that it's a type 2, when we again show up, we will have an EAF with
Okay.
us.
No, that's
You
that's
okay
fair.
with that, Lisa?
Yes, and in addition, Richard raised, I think for the first time here, the possibility that this may not be that a variance may not be required at all if it's per the site plan, which is something that if it was in the submittal, I didn't see it or catch it, so I'd like the opportunity to look at that. As to the issue of the statutory interpretation, it's correct that ambiguities go in favor of the property owner, but redundancies are also, the flip side of that is if you should avoid an interpretation that would make part of it redundant. So in this instance, we sort of have competing statutory maxims, and the board can do with it as it likes. And then to the applicant, I would just say that since one of the criteria for the granting of a variance, if we were to get to that point, is that the board is required to grant the minimum variance necessary. So it would be helpful if you could show the board why these alternatives that were raised are not feasible alternatives and why the sign in the location that you're proposing is the optimal sign. That would be helpful for the record.
Jim,
Yes.
did the county weigh in on this at all?
Yes, it did. And thank you for reminding me. I need to read that into the record. Okay, great. Okay, to Zoning Board of Appeals concerning Homewood Suites Hotel freestanding sign. The Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the subject referral within the framework of general municipal law action. The applicant is requesting an interpretation or area variance to allow a 50-square-foot freestanding sign not on the premises to which it is associated or to which it refers, and not at the driveway entrance of the site. Comments. The department has no authority to review interpretations. With regard to the area variance, we previously commented to the Zoning Board of Appeals in a letter dated March 2nd, 2007, where we recommended that if the board was inclined to grant the variance to allow the sign at the corner of Route 9 and Watson Road, that it condition its approval on the requirement that it be added to the existing Marriott pylon sign at the same location. 2 pylon signs side by side adds to sign clutter and is not in keeping with the purpose section of the town's sign regulations. Recommendation. For the reasons stated above, we recommend the board not grant the requested area variances until the following condition has been met. 1, the proposed sign be added to the existing freestanding sign at the same location. Voting and reporting requirements. If the board acts contrary to our recommendation, the law requires that it do so by a majority plus 1 of the full membership of the board, and that it notify us of the reasons for its decisions. Owen Rafter, Commissioner, by Jennifer Kokoza, Deputy Commissioner. Okay, thank you. Okay.
I don't think there's anyone in the audience who came to speak, but probably you want to find out.
Yep. So is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the application at wherever it is at? Let's see, I guess the address, technical address is 900 Thomas Watson Drive. Seeing no one? Okay, so, yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
When you come back on August 20th, with the rendition of the monument sign, would you be able to do an interpretation for both directions? How it would look coming north and going south? Going south is easy. Coming north, I'm just concerned, again, about the tree line and not that you can make a left-hand turn there, obviously, there's.
Yeah.
But, I just want, before I get yelled at for not having a mic. There we go. So, as you can see, this is the north coming up. The turn in for that, I can come back further if that's what you're looking for, a little further back, but as you can see, there's nothing really right here.
So it is a clear line of sight, okay.
Yeah, there's a large section right here. Stay. Right in the middle here of where it becomes this double for that turn-in lane. So there's a large section where that center divider isn't really there for a turn lane, so you would be able to see it clearly.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Can I ask one additional question? I just was taking a look at something that you submitted tonight, which is email regarding the request that was made at some point in the past to Marriott about co-location on their on the existing sign. Is there would there be any possibility of asking again and finding what their response would be?
Yes, yes, there is such a possibility, and we will endeavor to do that.
Okay. Okay, in the meantime, then, the material that you've submitted, I'll just give it to Sandy and have her copy so that we'll get a supplemental packet with that. And I don't know if there's anything else you want us to have?
All these.
All right. Okay, sure.
So I think, and I hope we made it clear that we're in solution mode if solution is available.
Oh, I think absolutely. I mean, I think it's clear from comments of both the zoning staff and members that some kind of a sign on Route 9 is required. And, let's figure out the best way to do it.
Fair
So,
enough.
okay.
Okay, thank you all for your time and your courtesy.
You need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I move that we adjourn item number 6 to our next meeting on August 20th.
28th, right.
And
Okay.
will you continue the public hearing?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
It's simply adjourned, yeah.
Okay, so moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recusals? Okay.
Jim, I just wanted to tell you that Mr. Goodnow is here for the number 5. He has
Oh, okay,
been in the meantime.
for,
New Hamburg Development.
yeah,
On the way
okay,
out, thank you.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so, all right, so, item number 5, New Hamburg Development Corporation, 12 Reed Street. Okay. Okay, if you'd each state your name for the record,
Andrew Goodnow.
and,
I'm Robert Gray, helped Andy with his application.
okay.
Do you each swear or affirm the testimony provided tonight is true and complete to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to just briefly describe what you're proposing to do?
There's an existing front porch there, and I just want to make it a little wider. Not quite to the end of the house, just kick it in 2 feet on each end, so I didn't know that I needed a variance, and the project's pretty much done, except for that, but I need a 4-foot variance on the left side of the house, or 5 foot, and a little less than 5 foot.
Okay. Phyllis, any questions?
When we were out, there were footings. Is that as far as the deck will go, or will it go a little bit beyond the?
About a little less than 12 inches from that footing, be a small overhang.
Okay. And the entire porch will be covered? Because it looked like there was just a little peak there
Right,
before.
there was just a 7-by-9 stoop, and it's going to be a hip roof. The roof will be in about 2 feet from the end of the house, but the deck about 3 feet each end of the house. And the same width, or the same depth, I should say.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul?
No questions, thanks.
Art?
No questions.
Okay, and I'm, okay. Larry?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
And no questions.
Okay, thank you.
Easy.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the application at 12 Reed Street? Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion to close the public
So
hearing?
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Recusals? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 7, Marist College, 11 to 21.
Apologize for
Champagne-
missing the first call, sorry.
It's okay. Champagne Way, 3741 Half Moon Walk, and 51 Edvard Beck Drive. Okay.
I recuse myself on this one.
And your name, sir?
Good evening. My name is John Andrews.
Mr. Andrews, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give tonight is to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Okay, and I should have said this earlier, on this item, Paul Lay has recused himself. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. Again, for the record, my name is John Andrews. I'm a New York State licensed professional engineer with the firm of Rohde, Soika and Andrews located here in Poughkeepsie, and I represent Marist College. We are here this evening seeking an area variance for some new construction. Marist is currently proposing a 61,000 square foot addition to the McCann Center. The addition will be along the front and the west side of the existing center. In order to accommodate that addition, we will be demolishing the existing student fitness center. The reason that we're demolishing the student fitness center is that it has a foundation issue, and it has compromised, and it's slowly sinking and falling into the earth. As a consequence, we have to replace it. We will be replacing it in almost identical fashion, except it will be expanded, and it will give us an opportunity to create a new entryway for the McCann Center, adding some facilities and some administrative tasks there, improving the facilities for our Division I athletes. There will be a weight room, a conditioning room, some other things on an expanded basis, and then providing gyms and other recreational opportunities for the normal student body. As part of all this, we're trying to clean up the south end of Marist. This will be our last big project down there, so we're trying to kind of rope everything in. One of the things, if you've ever been there, all the students walk across the parking lot. There is no direct route to the facility. It's a traffic nightmare. As a consequence, we're going to be taking all the traffic from the north end, pedestrian traffic, funneling it down a direct sidewalk right into the entryway of the McCann Center. Gives students the opportunity to walk. It's going to be about a 10.5-foot wide walkway. It's pretty wide, and it will funnel everyone right into the main entrance. We're going to clean up the parking a little bit. If you've ever been there, it's a free-for-all. There are no islands. There are no anything. We are adding islands. We are adding traffic control. We are also moving our handicap spaces. If you've ever been there, our handicap spaces are kind of like down the hill, and you kind of got to walk up to the main entrance. We're moving them up to the top of the lot, if you will, be a direct access route right into the main entry. We are also expanding the number. We're tightening up all the parking. We're providing a little better fire access along the other side. We're also going to legalize, which is a rather unique situation. If you've all been out there, at the back or the west side of Marist, and kind of like the southwest corner, there's a very steeply sloping, heavily wooded section of hill. The bottom of the hill is the wastewater treatment plant. The property, one piece of property is owned by the city of Poughkeepsie. The other piece is jointly owned by the city and the town of Poughkeepsie. For years, there's kind of been a no harm, no foul type situation where Marist has used the top in its discretion, and everyone else has used the bottom, and we've left the slope alone. When we finally started looking at this project, it came time, we realized some of the facilities of Marist College are over on the other guy's property. That's not permitted. So we are looking and have been in contact with both the city of Poughkeepsie and the town of Poughkeepsie Town Board to obtain easement agreements to cover those historic encroachments and to kind of tighten that up. And we're not doing any expansion, we're just legalizing what we've been doing for years. And all that ends up, what we have here in pink is the property line. It's kind of a sawtooth situation. Right here at the closest point, we will have 14 foot 6 inches. Requires a variance of 35 feet where 50 is required. Most of you have been here before. I've been here before. Each time we've done something on this building, we've had to come back for a variance. The original McCann Center was built back in 1975. The zoning was different back then. I think the yards were about 20 feet. Because of the changes through the years, the yards have increased. They're now up to 50. But we obtained a variance from you back in 2010 for this freestanding pole barn, 22 feet. This is the basketball addition. It was put on at the same time. If you remember, I had to come back twice because they moved the building on me after you granted a variance.
Yes.
So we ended up with a 21-foot variance. It's kind of getting tighter as we go that way. There's a couple things we can't do. We've looked at various alternatives, and we looked very hard at the alternatives because in order to build this new building, Marist has to build a very expensive and extensive foundation system. The soils are underlaying by a very deep organic layer. It probably runs from 16 foot below grade to about 26 foot below grade, and it's comprised of wood, miscellaneous junk. It's been filled in over the years. So we actually have to drill piles and expensive foundations. We did look at swinging this building around. To swing over this way, there is a rather large sewer easement that runs down there. There is also an active playing field. We have our baseball field, which they don't want to compromise, and as many of you may recall, there's also someplace out there a old graveyard of Marist brothers. It's below about 20 feet of fill, but it's located someplace out in the outfield. So there isn't a lot of opportunity for us to switch around. The other thing is most of the function of the McCann Center has been set through the years. If you recall, this side of the McCann Center is the basketball arena. Everything is there. The other side of the McCann Center is their pool and associated facilities. It's a Division I pool. It's a beautiful pool. So in order to kind of make everything work, this is about the only spot we could put the building. And we tried smaller footprints. We tried higher footprints. This seems to be optimal because the other thing that we have to keep open, there's a courtyard here. That's a courtyard where all the utilities enter the existing McCann Center. And the last element of this project, Mike knows, is we have to, before we can even knock down this building, we have to relocate every utility that supplies the McCann Center. Because the water, the electric, and the gas all run through the footprint of that existing building. Why somebody was allowed to do it, we don't know. But we have to reroute all our utilities out and around and resurface the McCann Center before we can even get a demolition permit. So what we believed is it's kind of a tough situation, but this is what we believe gives us the optimum. We have received a negative declaration from the planning board. You should have a copy of that in your records. We have also received conditional site plan approval from the planning board for what you see in front of you. A variance from you folks is one of those conditions, as well as satisfying the town and the city with respect to the easements. And again, I'll be willing to take any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Phyllis?
No questions.
Paul? I'm sorry, Art?
What's the difference in size versus what's there now? You know, overall difference in size? Of the
I
facility?
think it's about 37,000 square feet now, so it's going up to 61. So it's a pretty healthy bump. Most of that is being devoted to Division I athlete space.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So really what's before us is one variance.
One variance.
Covering that
one corner, the
of
sawtooth.
Of the new building.
And the irony of the situation is there was a property swap a number of years ago between the city and the town in Marist, and if we hadn't swapped the property, I wouldn't be here. But that's okay.
Larry?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Carmen?
I just didn't realize it was 1975 that.
The original McCann Center was 1975. I think the addition was the fitness center addition was 1997, I believe. And then the basketball addition was 2010.
Yeah. And then what is the target if everything falls into place for you? What is the target for
This is Marist College, so the target is, I think they would like to have this up and operational perhaps as early as September next year, if everything goes according to plan. Wow. We're ambitious.
Wow.
Yeah.
We've actually started the relocation work, and we're working on everything else, but it's a push. And because, as you folks probably are aware, when Marist does things, they maintain full operation in most of the buildings that are associated with it. So while we are building this new addition, the McCann Center will be fully operational and available for all activities. So we're coming up with it. We have, as part of our plans that the planning board approved, there's a new temporary entrance plan. There's a new egress plan. We have to maintain the parking through all the seasons. So it's ambitious, but we think we've got it under control.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Oh, just one.
Sure.
I like the idea of organizing the parking lot. Will you lose parking spaces by putting in islands and
We have a net
directionals?
gain of 22 parking spaces when we're all done. The planning board has been very clear through the years that if we lose a parking space, they're not inclined to look favorably on our projects. So everything is done with trying to net out additional parking. So if you've been out there, you remember there's a whole section along the back of those dormitories where the hill is kind of juts out into the parking lot. We're actually going to take that hill and cut it back and push it back and pick up almost all 23 spaces along there, and gives us the opportunity to clean things up. You're welcome.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the application at Marist College? Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and there was one recusal. Okay.
Thank you.
right.
And Sandy,
Thank
I'll
you.
call you in the morning. I'm not going to stick around. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Enjoy the summer, folks.
Okay, so we've finished the public hearing. Would you like a brief?
Very brief.
Okay, we'll take a brief recess. People can get a drink of water and whatever. So we'll be back just a few minutes.
Word for responsible.
Okay, we're back in session, and we are now in the deliberation phase, so we're back to the top of the agenda, and the first item, Wendy's, 753 Main Street, and we have two issues to decide. The first is an interpretation on whether or not the addition of a second order point constitutes an expansion of non-conforming use. You've also got a staff report, and the recommendation on the interpretation is to affirm the zoning administrator's decision or interpretation that adding a second order point is in fact an expansion of a non-conforming use. Comments? How do people feel about this?
Well, couldn't we do the same thing for McDonald's up at Marist?
McDonald's was in a different zone, so it wasn't a non-conforming use.
Oh, okay, scratch that.
Okay, all right. I mean, to me, the order point is part of drive-through use. And if you had one order point and now you're going to have two, it seems to me on the face of it, this is an expansion. But I don't know.
Do they, Jim, do they understand that if this is granted, it's the last time that they can ever request an expansion?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear because, you know, the next is going to be an application for a permit to allow this one-time use, which is, you know, that's the way legal non-conforming uses are written up in the code. So.
Yeah.
Help me, people.
Personally, I don't see a major impact to anybody other than them. It's, you know.
But, so there's a two-part question that you have to answer. The first is, do you agree with the zoning interpretation from the zoning administrator that adding a second order point is an expansion of the non-conforming use?
I agree, it's an expansion.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Okay.
Anyone disagree? So
Okay, so then, let me see, I don't know how, what, I move that the zoning board affirms the decision by the zoning administrator that the addition of a second order point does constitute an expansion of a non-conforming use.
Second.
Okay. There's no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Recusals? Okay. So we're dealing with an expansion. Okay, so now there's a question of the permit to allow this expansion. And again, in your packet was a staff report that notes that they're allowed to expand up to 25%. The difficulty is that the code is written as if it were a building. So that, for example, if I had a pizza joint in a residential area and it was very successful and I wanted to expand it, I could, you know, the new Jim's Pizza Shop would be the existing structure plus 25%. Here, the building is not changing, but what is changing is the drive-through use. So,
Actually, they are reducing the building.
the building is actually changing. The issue here is that the non-conforming use needs to be parsed out from the building because the building is a permitted use, so they can do what they want to with the zoning. So the fact that they're making the building smaller is independent of the question of the expansion of the non-conforming use.
So,
The reason it's not a use variance?
Because it's not a use variance, because this particular provision of the code allows a one-time expansion of a non-conforming use.
Right,
If-
but the use of a drive-through is prohibited.
Yes, and it was deemed to be a lawful non-conforming use, so that it went into effect apparently from the zoning administrator's determination prior to the change in zone that allowed no drive-throughs for retail. So this is different, it's an existing lawful non-conforming use, the drive-through portion.
Yeah.
And the distinction is now, so they fall within that expansion section. If they wanted to come in for a further expansion, that would fall within the non-conforming use, a use variance. And if they wanted to change to a different non-conforming use, that would require a use variance. But because this one predates the implementation of the zoning which prohibited drive-throughs in that location, it is permitted to have the one-time expansion.
yeah, when they created the Arlington Town Center zoning area, and it included Main Street, there were already actually several drive-throughs. There was Banks, there were, a number of others, and Wendy's was one of those that had been there for a long time. So.
Okay.
So, in discussing this, came up with a kind of suggestion that since we're talking about the drive-through use, we look at that part of the site that is actually using the drive-through, and they said that the total lane, starting from where cars first enter through the order station and then to the pickup window, is 360 feet, and it's about 10 feet wide. So that means the existing drive-through use is about 3,600 square feet, and that adding the second order point would add a lane 12 feet wide by 30 feet long, so that's 360 feet. So the proposed expansion is well under the 25% limit. So it seems to me that they've met the qualifications for this one-time expansion, and I'm perfectly happy to support that.
The only thing that they haven't yet met is that it requires site plan review, which it would in any case. So as a condition, I would suggest, that just be stated that site plan review from the planning board is necessary.
Okay, question for our council, since this is a permit, how do we want to?
It's fairly straightforward. You don't have to run through, it's not a special use permit, it's just a permit. So in my mind, it's a simple motion to allow the one-time expansion with conditioned however the board wants to condition, and as Mike suggests, that's an excellent condition, and that's it.
Okay, so I move that the ZBA approve a permit to allow Wendy's at 753 Main Street to expand the non-conforming use of a drive-through by the addition of a second order point, which would add 360 square feet to the existing non-conforming use of 3,600 square feet for the drive-through lane.
Do we have to do seeker first?
Yes.
Seeker. Oh, good. Okay, this is an unlisted action, okay. All right, I move that the ZBA declare itself lead agency for the purpose of the review of the actions proposed at 753 Main Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I further move that based on the information provided in a EAF short form, that the action proposed at 753 Main Street will not have a significant effect on the environment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, now to the permit, and I move ZBA permit Wendy's at 753 Main Street to expand the existing non-conforming drive-through use through the addition of a second order point. The addition will be of 360 square feet, which represents less than the allowed 25% of the existing use. This permit is conditioned upon site plan approval by the planning board.
Second.
So move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recusals? Okay, so,
Okay.
all right, item 2 has been adjourned. Item,
You have one person in the audience, if you'd like to.
oh,
You do.
well, and I think we're getting there. Item number 4, 2 and 3 have been adjourned. Item 4, 36 Harmony Circle is a variance to allow a shed to be located 2 feet from the side lot line where 10 feet is required. This is a type 2 action, so there's no environmental determination. Let's see. I move that the board determine as findings the following. The board finds that there will be no undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. We note that the current shed replaces a shed that was long on the same location, and the board further notes that many properties in this area have similar sheds. The board finds that it would be very difficult for the applicant to achieve this by some other means because of the size of the backyard and the location of the existing leach fields. The board finds that the variance is not substantial, but rather simply replaces what had long been there. The board finds that the new shed will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood, and the board finds that the alleged difficulty is self-created in the sense that a decision was made to put a new shed there, but that it's not self-created in the sense that there was an existing shed there when the current owner acquired the property. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Phyllis, you want to do the motion on this?
Sure. I move that the board approve the request for an area variance set forth in item number 4. This decision is based on a review of the applicant, testimony of the applicant, testimony offered in the public hearing, results of site visits by board members, and determination by the board. In approving this variance, the board adopts as findings
Set forth by the chair.
those set forth by the chair.
Okay. Okay, so, was there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, so, motion's been made and seconded to, approve the application at 36 Harmony Circle. No further questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved, 7-0.
And one.
I'm sorry, 6-0 with one abstention.
5.
It's actually 701, right, because there's 7 voting members.
6.
No,
Oh,
6.
no, Carmen showed up, okay.
Right, because
Been here a while.
Phyllis is
Yeah.
voting as the alternate.
It's 6.
7.
7.
Six.
So it's 6
Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's getting late.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so next is item number 5, the New Hamburg Development Corporation, 12 Reed Street. There are 2 variances to allow the replacement of an existing porch with a larger porch that is 17.8 feet from the front property line where 30 feet is required, and 15.6 feet from the side lot line where 20 feet is required. And there's also a type 2 action. And I move that the board adopt as findings. The board determined that there will be no undesirable change produced in the character of the neighborhood. This is the replacement of an existing porch by a slightly larger one. The board also notes that in the New Hamburg area, many of the properties require variances for setbacks because of just the nature and the historic, the history of the district. The board finds that the benefit sought by the applicant really cannot be achieved by some other method because the porch has to be located where it is. 3, the board determines that the requested variances are substantial in the sense of being a fairly large proportion, but insubstantial given the location of the new porch as compared to the old one. The board finds that the proposed variance will have no adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions, and the board finds that the difficulty is self-created because the decision was made to increase the size of the porch, but this doesn't preclude the granting of the variance. So is there a second to those findings? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Paul, do you want to do the variance?
I move the board approve a request for an area variance set forth in item number 5. Decisions based upon a review of the application, testimony of the applicant, testimony offered in the public hearing, results of site visit by board members, and the determinations just offered by the chair.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, okay, motion to approve variance at 12 Reed Street. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 6 has been adjourned. Item number 7, Marist College. A variance to allow the construction of an addition to the existing McCann Recreation Center to be 14 feet 6 inches from the side lot line where 50 feet is required. The planning board has already issued a negative declaration, so no further environmental action is needed. And in your packet, there's a staff report recommending the approval of this variance and suggesting that we adopt as findings attachment B of the application, which addresses each of the questions in some detail. So, Art, do you want to do this one?
Sure. I move that the board approve the request for an area variance set forth in item 7. This decision is based on a review of the application, testimony of the applicant, testimony offered in the public hearing, results of site visits by board members, and the staff report. In approving this variance, the board adopts as findings the determinations found in items 1 through 5 of the staff report and
which is, or to attachment B of the application.
So move.
Second. Oh, no, sorry.
Don't, you can't do that, Paul.
All right.
Okay, who,
Second?
Phyllis. I did, second.
okay, Phyllis, okay, good.
That wasn't me.
All right, motion to approve the variance for the McCann, the new McCann addition at Marist College. Been made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved 6-0 with one recusal. Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. There's no other items for us to consider. I would simply remind everyone that we have moved the date of the August meeting from the 13th to the 20th. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, and seconded, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned.